Okay, I call to order the city council workshop for Tuesday, June 21st, 6 p.m. We're here to discuss, first item on the agenda is ARPA funding update. Maggie.
Good evening, not good morning, good evening. Perfect. You should have, you should have a couple new updated documents. One was Jenny's memo and then a new kind of spreadsheet for all of the documents. And then I gave you a copy of my PowerPoint presentation as well. So just to kind of thank you. Or not. Try not to move it. Or you can move it, if you want, whatever you want to do. Oh, there we go.
Magic.
Okay. So we've had quite a few meetings about ARPA funding and some ideas that the staff and the council has come up with. And here's just to kind of summarize the spreadsheet that is in front of you as well. Some of the main priorities that you guys talked about was the security system for all of our city buildings and Camp Lincoln, the bathroom that needs to be installed. The generator for City Hall and Pickle that would be shared, the worker retention incentives, the downtown sound system that the chamber had requested, and the donation to the Lakes Area Food Shelf. Some other items on there are for the Nisswa Park items that have been kind of included in the master park plan that is in full swing right now. I did talk to Amber today, and the project website and the survey should be up and running in the next 2 weeks. So that is super exciting. There are some, I'll say, remaining lifelines of a couple of these items. And one is the swing set that will need to be replaced in the next 2 to 5 years. And then the main playground set out there that has about 5 years max remaining. So to just kind of keep those in mind too, as we move forward, that those will probably take a priority over some of the other rink things or other park things. So to kind of summarize some of the security systems and the camera, here is just kind of a list of all of the detailed kind of on an estimated cost that each building would require. Let's see, the fire hall spoke with Jenny and they prefer not to have a security system or cameras at their building at this time. So it would be just up to you guys if you'd like to continue to do that or not. But here's kind of the breakdown for buildings. The city hall is estimated at 44,000. The pickle factory is at 5,000. The Spirits of Nisswa would be 5,000. Public works and sewer buildings out at the maintenance garage would be about 24,000. Parks and community center, we're looking at 12,000. And the welcome center and the chamber building would be about 5,000. So estimated for all of those buildings to have our security system and cameras would be about 95,000.
If I can just add one thing. So what I did was I estimated the kind of main essential doors for our buildings as far as an initial need. So this does not cover every door, every potential access. This is, main public doors or things like that for our other buildings. There's certainly more incorporated for City Hall just based on the number. But for the pickle, for example, that's the main door and a couple of security cameras. So it's getting everybody on that setup and then adding to it, in the future. So I just want to give you that perspective.
Maggie, you probably don't know the answer to this, but is the security system
That's not monitored, that's just a camera with a tape deck and recording what's going on. There's no notification to the police or anything, right?
Is your question, if somebody were to break in, would there be notification?
Right away.
Yes,
It would-
yes, with with the electronic access doors. Now that may not be the answer for every door, depending on what's hooked up and what's not, but that would be something to,
But that would be an extra ongoing monthly cost.
probably, yes,
So none of these buildings are alarmed.
no.
Okay.
No,
Spirit.
pickle, spirits, some of,
They have their panic buttons, so that's what we pay for monitoring there, and I think it's $500 a year.
it's nominal.
Yes.
They don't have an alarm system that they set the code at night and walk out.
I don't believe so.
Okay, okay. Okay.
That'd be a
So-
nice thing.
sorry.
No, no,
And that
perfect.
panic button, if I recall, is a manual button that
Yep.
only is pressed during the day when
Yep.
somebody's working.
Yes,
Nothing that's automated.
no, they would have to press the button and it would be dispatched to Crow Wing County, you
Sure.
know, people through people security. Yep. So Camp Lincoln, as the council may recall, when the land was conveyed to the city, we agreed to install a bathroom by the end of 2024 in order for them to convey this land. So this is something that will need to be done by the end of 2024, which quickly approaches, I think, faster than we think it does. Amber put together a new estimated cost for a one-stall bathroom at about $26,550. And Camp Lincoln is also included in the park master plan as part of the process for them to review that park as well, as far as the overall park plan and other facilities that can be there. The generator at City Hall and the pickle factory that would be shared, we are still waiting for the vendor to give us an estimate on this. I talked with Tom today. Sounds like the electrician is where we're kind of stumbling here, but based on our pricing from 2019 with a 30% inflation, we're looking at just over $101,000.
Do you have on hand tonight any information in regards to the generator that was quoted on that 2019 quote? And if you don't, that's fine, but could I get provided that at a later
Sure.
time?
Sure.
Because in our line of business, my family's, we have a lot of connections that we get a lot of this at a pretty discounted rate because we purchase them for projects of ours across the country.
Okay.
I think that that's pretty high, depending on what size kilowatt generator that is. And again, I get it. It's two different buildings, but primarily it's keeping those coolers cool so we don't lose product.
Yep.
So.
Okay.
Yeah, we can
Understand.
share that, absolutely.
Neither location is running any they don't have a generator right now?
No.
Zilch.
No, so when we had that power outage a few weeks ago or something, they were down. No lights, no power, no systems.
Well, I think it's interesting that when we have a storm, we had a lot of problems, people would call City Hall. And what's the next closest thing that they would call? Pickle?
Go to the pickle.
Yeah.
Get a beer and
You
supper.
want to get a reprieve from your house if you don't have power, and yes.
Call the mayor at the pickle. That he'll answer.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. No, so I'll find that information for you, Jesse. The worker retention incentives. This is something that we put together. Mark Fraley and Mark Utzinger kind of gave us a summary of kind of what they were looking for or what their thoughts were in regards to what they were looking to see. Mark, since you're here, do you want to just kind of go over what you were looking?
Well, I just would, my idea was those that work closely, on hands with people during the COVID and we're not amongst the pickle or the spirits, to get a incentive pay. My thing is those that were full-time employees at least 5 years, breaking down with a certain amount for that. And then like $50 for each year of service after that. I think I was looking at like 500 or 1,000 for the initial, and then 50 for every year after that.
And his memo is in here too, but Mark Utzinger was looking towards more like a monthly gift card for improvements, department improvements, or, procedure improvements, or like an employee lunch and learn. One thing digging into a little bit more of what the specifications and the requirements are allowed with the ARPA funds is it must be related to COVID-19 pandemic. So within that time period. And then as far as an amount, the 500 or 1,000, kind of what we're thinking, it will fall in, but it must be less than 25% of somebody's base pay. So it can't exceed a whole lot of their wages. So just to note, as some of the council wasn't here in April of 2020, the city did approve a COVID-19 pay to all pickle and spirits employees at an additional $3 an hour for everything worked between March 10th of 2020 and May 3rd of 2022. I did just a quick estimate on all full-time employees working 40 hours a week during that time period, and it estimated to be about $960. So something to consider making this decision as well.
It gives you a good frame of reference.
Yes.
Comparison wise, as far as what you're looking potentially at for this, what was done for the liquor staff back then at that time.
So I just kind of put together some options. I did the reporting period. How I kind of figured out these numbers was I took March 15th, 2020 through June 30th of 2021. And this would be all current, still working full-time employees, and it would include all firemen. And if every employee within that time frame received $500, you're looking at a $22,000 payout. This time period I referenced into the frontline worker pay because that was their time period. I also ran some numbers for just 2020 and the numbers came out the same way. So just to kind of throw it out that I tried to do 2020 and I added the little bit of 2021 as well, and it was the same numbers.
Okay.
So here's a quick estimate based on those numbers and kind of taking Mark's suggestion of $500 or $1,000 for each of those full-time employees and firemen.
You did not include the police,
Yes. It's all full-time employees, all staff
even the police.
that are currently working. Yes,
Does that also include the spirits and pickle staff?
it does.
Full-time though.
Full-time,
Full-time, yeah.
yes.
So there's a distinction there for those two.
And Pickle has 3 full-time staff and Spirits has 3 full-time staff. So kind of looking at $3,000 or $6,000 on which option. And I certainly can give the breakdown to you as well. Any questions, comments on that? I'm sure most of you have heard about the frontline worker pay. This is available to all Minnesotan workers who work the frontline during COVID-19. All employees must be employed at least 120 hours between March 15th of 2020 and June 30th of 2021. So that was where my frame of reference came for our worker incentive. The one thing that I think a lot of people don't understand is the state determines who's eligible for this. The city does not. We do not make the payouts. It's each employee goes on, fills out the application online, and the city or the state decides yay or nay. So the application period is from June 8th through July 22nd of this year. So there is some time. I did have some staff come and say, well, I don't have a computer. I'll certainly plug in a computer, turn it on for them to do it. So there's availability here for them to do that.
Do we have any idea what the state's eligibility is for the line workers pay?
As far as
What they're looking for? I mean, is it, anybody, or what the criteria is for eligibility, basically?
yes, in your packet, I attached a couple pages. There are just like a handful of requirements of like what you could make, what kind of job you did, and as let's see, like building and services, childcare, courts and corrections, emergency responders. So within that 2-page document, it kind of gives the requirements. I haven't
Okay.
logged on myself just to see what other questions they may ask during the application period, but so they do tell you kind of a summary of what would be allowed and not allowed before you even get to the application process. If the state denies you, you do have a time to rebuttal and state your case. Okay, so the downtown sound system, Jenny, you can step into, but I don't think there's a whole lot more up to date on this, but the chamber would they requested a handful of months ago to have the city pay for half of the new sound system downtown. The estimated cost of this is $7,500. I don't think that has changed.
It hasn't changed, no. When I talked to Pam about a week ago, she said that ideally she would like to see implementation of half the system this year or soon. I asked her basically what potential budget impacts or things that requests would the chamber have, and this one was still at the top of her list. So if she said we can get something installed and then continue to work on that, that's what she'd like to see. So I included that here for your information. Just I think she's looking at or willing to phase it in. I don't think she's done any more outreach as far as raising the funds from other businesses or other organizations yet. So she's still looking for the city to do that.
And have we received any information about the system, the
No.
vendor, and anything? 'Cause
No.
that was the big stumbling block,
Sure.
one part of it.
Yep.
Who are you going with? What are we looking at, et cetera? I know it's going to be very similar to what's already there. It'll be compliant, it'll work with it. But I know there were some questions we threw out there, but we haven't got any information back to any of those questions.
No, I know the vendor is, I think, reluctant to provide information until they know exactly what they're getting or what's able to come in. So there's just a little bit of a kind of wait and see. And that's okay. I mean, from the city's perspective, I think, but.
I understand the cost, but
Yeah.
options, what kind of a system would you do? What wouldn't you do? That kind of stuff. I would think they'd be more than easily supplied, but
Sure.
I understand reluctance on, I don't know if I can get it.
Yeah.
Or I can't give you a solid cost. I get that, but yeah,
Sure.
the way things are right now.
Yeah.
Okay.
We got all this money. Am I understanding correctly? It's more to say thank you to the frontline people who stayed on. Is that why we get all this money?
For like the ARPA funds in general, or why the potential worker incentive
Well,
retention?
Well, we got $144,000.
229,000.
We have 114 now, but we'll
Yeah.
have 229.
Okay, why originally did we get 229?
What's the purpose of the ARPA funds?
We got the money.
It's supposed to help cities and government kind of get back into the flow of business and operation and to cover some costs additional costs with COVID. To summarize that.
Yeah, and I think it was quickly recognized that every city, community, county was going to be impacted differently. And so they wanted to just provide as broad of a applicability and use of the funds with having some parameters, but basically to say if you were impacted, you have now some extra money to offset potential revenue loss or challenges with your services or things like that. So, yes.
Which I think is why the state recently passed the frontline worker pay, is to try to help out on that front as well as the ARPA funds.
Yep.
To that specific fund.
Yep.
Right. So,
Does that help, Don?
I think I understand, but I'm not sure that I agree.
Understood.
The goalposts have been moving on this one.
yeah,
Mhm.
Yeah, you could almost say that every city worker in some degree should get frontline pay. But I don't think that's fair, and I think we were wasting money to do something like that.
Jenny, you might have some new information from Pam too on the downtown system. I did talk with Tom because I remember at one meeting, I think, John, you had requested that maybe our city staff could look at the current system itself. And Tom said they looked at it, but it needed somebody else to look at it. And Pam was going to have somebody come else and look to see if the new system could be fixed, repaired, or what kind of condition it was in.
Yeah, thank you for that. I know Mike Deck did go out and look at it, and I believe it is not in a state of repair.
Yeah.
That would be not a good use of dollars.
how far does that audio system run? I mean, from the chamber building,
Yeah.
where else down Main Street does it run? Because I actually do not know off the top of my head.
Right now?
Yep.
Doesn't.
It's just the building itself.
Correct.
So when
Yes.
we're talking at downtown, I mean, where are we actually talking about PA systems being?
When Pam brought it, it's been talked about, like, when we're, so for example, when there's parades, but also when there's events and stuff, it would go downtown proper, what you would consider downtown.
Sure.
Okay. The park, or not up the park here, but like where the fire pits are and stuff, when there's the wood chopping, when during Winter Jubilee and that. That was the idea behind it there. And then also to include, eventually look at doing down into the
Village Square.
Village Square, thank you,
Mhm.
down there,
Mhm.
et cetera. And it's all Wi-Fi now, as opposed to the old system, which was all wired, you know, to individual places, but it would be all be Wi-Fi, and it works with the current system they just updated for the Turtle Track. So it's all interconnected, and then it would all be operated out of the building there, because that's where the main deck is and everything.
But each individual speaker would have to be powered by whatever building it's attached to, right? So just
Well,
looking at,
yeah,
Yes.
that was
Right.
that was the question too. It depends, you know, how much power is that gonna be? What's that gonna draw? How do you hook it up? How do you hook it up at the individual building? That's all stuff that,
their Wi-Fi services, I'm assuming, because it's not like we have a downtown, it's not like an airport, right? Downtown Wi-Fi, right? That's, even if it's $5 or $500, it's gonna then pose to every individual business owner that has a speaker on said building. Well, we think that we're being undercompensated for this amount. I just see headache unless it's,
you can pretty well, I mean, we had that up in Pequot when we put up the sign, like we have it here on 18 or Lakers Lane. I mean, they knew, the county, when we went through the whole bid process and we found the sign that they eventually put up there, it was gonna cost X number of dollars for that LED sign a year. Boom, that was it. I mean, and I think they came to within 50, 60 cents of that. And the old Landecker building, whoever owned it at the time, I forget, hooked it up to their power. They didn't care. They said that's fine. It was already, actually, there was power there, so
sure.
it wasn't a big deal. And the city just compensated them on their, I think it was a utility bill of theirs, so.
Sure. Unless it went on like a individual city light pole where the city was already paying for that light, well, it was metered individually per se. That'd be incredibly easy on that front.
Yeah, that would be much
Right.
easier.
Then you're
Definitely
talking,
potential.
There was also the idea thrown out of like
Mhm.
sponsoring a speaker, if you want a
Oh.
speaker, if you want to buy a speaker, depend. But again, what are costs? I know the vendor was having trouble finding, you know, getting the stuff in.
Yeah.
Just,
It's a complicated proposal.
Mm-hmm.
when you look down to the nitty gritty of it. So not trying to throw water on this fire here, but
But the one part about it, this has been discussed multiple times. Like from a safety standpoint, if you got a big crowd downtown, you got somebody that finds a missing child, or they go to the generally, you go to the chamber building, you can announce it out.
right.
And same with camera systems and stuff. You never know, all of a sudden a child ends up missing and, God
Well,
forbid.
yeah, you've got to look at the Wi-Fi too. How's that gonna,
I think a comprehensive study on how this would go about with the current infrastructure we have in downtown should be presented first before we talk about.
Her initial system is Wi-Fi based, I believe. The turtle track is all Wi-Fi. I mean, but it just goes from the building to the turtle track.
yeah.
Yeah, generally, I think it's a net benefit for the city to have that. I just see a lot of minor logistical issues that need to be sorted out before
Exactly.
dedication of funds.
Well, that's what we had asked from the vendor for Pam to get to us.
And then half the cost, what about half of the replacement bill for a speaker if it's
Mhm.
destroyed of some sort? Anyway, I'll leave it at that.
But my thought too is if you can get this for 15,000, that's pretty darn cheap. Because there's so many, no, meaning there's so many ifs and buts in there too, and what all is gonna be covered, what's in there, how are they, thinking of everything that goes behind it.
So that's, you said 6 speakers?
I think she had mentioned something around the numbers starting, it was like 6 speakers.
Correct.
Because these aren't the little tiny ones.
No.
These are the bigger
Yeah.
Bose style that are nice. Good. But anyway,
No, great conversation. Okay. So then the Lakes Area Food Shelf had came and requested from the council to see if the council would use their ARPA funds to donate, I think it was $5,000 to them. In digging into the ARPA funds, this is an allowable expense that we could donate. We also, Jenny, checked with the state auditor and their regulations, as a city needs to follow some of those rules and regulations, and this is an allowable expense to donate to them as well. The one thing I also put in my memo is something the council should consider if this is something we want to do and move forward with is how would we handle other requests? What do we want to set some parameters on something? Because there could be other organizations that would come and potentially ask for funds as well. And in my research, I have found that if we do want to do this, I would request that we as a city would put a letter together stating that they're using these funds following the US Treasury guidelines, just to kind of eliminate the process and the follow through to make sure that they're spending, as a city, we need to make sure they're spending their funds as it's requested. So it just is kind of a double check balance that they're agreeing to spend it the way it should be spent.
Mhm.
Well, I have to say that I was once on the board of the food shelf, and they can use any money we can send them. And I look forward from today into the next year, and I think the economy is going to get much worse than it is. More and more people are going to need the food shelf, and I don't think $5,000 is nearly enough to buck down for them. I'd go for 25 or so.
And that was a request they made, I think, in February, right?
I know, yeah.
Yeah, that wasn't even with consideration of what's taking place inflationary wise, CPI data wise in the past couple months,
Yeah, it's going to get worse before it gets better.
Mhm.
right?
but to Maggie's point, is it the city, is it government's job to donate funds to nonprofits? Now we have funds that were given to us. We have taxpayer funds, let's face it, that were given to us. And, this is a one-off thing. Okay, but at what point and who do you say no to then? And where does that go? And I mean, that could be a dangerous thing. Now, the flip side, not everyone that asks for money services a whole community. anyone in the community that needs assistance and stuff. But along with the letter that Maggie is mentioning, we should probably come up with something that says, okay, under certain
Yep.
how do you rate? Because that could get really dangerous, or I mean,
I can't think of anything that has a more direct impact.
oh, I agree. I'm not disagreeing with you, Don. I've worked there. I've volunteered some time there and, but again, at what point do so.
Well, everybody has this equal chance to come in and ask.
They do, and I was actually gonna double off that. Granted, I'm new. How many times annually do individuals per se come in and request funds? Just directly like that, presenting as they did, I think in February. And does the food shelf come annually asking? Does anybody
Not
recall?
that I'm aware of.
No, I haven't.
I think that
I don't
was,
think
You've been
that
here
anyone has.
longer than any of the rest of us as council. Is that the first time they've come and asked?
There have been other people that have asked for things, but not the food shelf. And considering the conditions that we're in and how it's impacted people's lives, I can't think of anything that more apropos for this money than the food shelf. But that's me.
If you were on the board in the past for this food shelf, what do you think $25,000 would do for that?
It helped a lot. You have people coming in almost every day, probably asking, and they can't turn anybody away.
No,
So they're always looking for funds.
especially the cost of fuel for them, because I remember they stated they have a vehicle where they go and retrieve the items sometimes and everything's,
Yeah, right all the way to
Everything's-
Grand Rapids.
oh,
that stuff.
okay.
Just a thought.
Just some quick other updates in regards to the spreadsheet. The park master plan, there was talks about using ARPA funds for this, but it was approved to use general fund reserves a while back. The fire hall technology, after speaking with Sean, he is going to just use his budgeted funds to pay for a new TV or whatever other technology he needed. He figured he could do that within his budget. The city library that Don brought up, Jenny recommended that we talk about that with future community engagements and conversations, because that's a huge project and undertaking to see who, what, where, how, when, and why type of thing. And then just some additional research I did on matching grants for use of ARPA funds. So let's say we want to replace a swing set and it costs $10,000. We can actually use ARPA funds for a matching grant as long as it's a non-federal grant. So it's a way to maximize our funds if there's grants available to apply for them.
Mhm.
You guys have anything in mind in regards to a light example like these microphones per se?
Not
Sorry to put you on the
yet.
spot.
No, it's just taking a moment to think
Conversations.
about it, but, I think once hopefully we narrow down a little bit more, we can start to look at options for that or opportunities. There's certainly grant opportunities for some parks things specifically, and so as that the Parks Master Plan process plays out, maybe there's funds that we look to do some things with this year, and then we wait to see how some other things develop and then pursue that potentially as an option, grants for whatever there might be. Certainly.
I know there's grants through like OSHA for security and safety and things like that. So depending on what we want to move forward with, we can start digging in and looking into some of those. Any other questions? We kind of touched on this at the beginning, but our ARPA funds will total $229,056. Currently, we have received $114,528. I just received an email on Monday that we are expected to receive our final distribution this week. I have not seen it as of yet, but it's coming.
Wow, they sure pay faster than the IRS for a federal tax return. Goodness.
So in reality, we have 18 months to obligate all the funds and quite some time to get them out.
Yes. So we just need to make sure we've obligated our funds by the end of 2024, which gives us a couple years yet, or year and a half. And then all the funds must be spent by the end of 2026. So we do have some time, but not a lot of time. So that is the end of my presentation. Is there any additional questions that you can think of?
It's very good.
Thanks.
Did,
Thank you, Maggie.
in your research and stuff,
Yeah.
and I just thought of this, so, you know, in your research, did it see anywhere in there where, you could use it for infrastructure, repair or anything like that?
What kind of infrastructure?
Well,
Road, sewer.
like a
water.
road repair or something like, just off the top of my head, for example, all of a sudden you have this turn on Poplar where it goes to lower Cullen, or where you go along the east side of Cullen Lake there, and it's always washing out. And we haven't budgeted for it. So you want to say you want to put fix that corner, and you know, you're gonna have to dig it out, put in a curb, and yada, yada. Could you use it for something like that? That seems,
Most likely, yes.
okay.
You can basically use it for any essential city service.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
I think we were trying to focus on ideas for things that we wouldn't normally have budgeted for. I mean, and there are things that pop up, certainly that we need to have done that we haven't budgeted for, but thank you, Maggie. I
Yep.
think the question would be does the council want to move forward on any specific item? It's a lot of information. Can certainly, again, there's no immediate, need to do something, but if you have a sense of something you would like to move forward with, we just want to help keep that going.
I do.
Okay.
I am going to, well, first off, do we have the ability tonight to allocate any amount of these funds to a specific item that was presented here?
If the
And
coun-
move forward with it?
So what we could do, we can't do it at the workshop, but you can add an agenda item to our 7 o'clock regular
Mhm.
meeting if the council wants to take action on something specific. So you can certainly do that and say, I'd like to plan for that at 7 o'clock, and we'll add it to the agenda.
Okay, well, I do, if I may. I'm going to, based off the situation that this country is in and the state and individuals within this community that I personally know are struggling due to the economic inflation and the hardships that everybody is incurring, I would like to see at a minimum, we allocate 10%, at a minimum, 10% of these funds to the Lakes Area Food Shelf as a one-time donation, a special donation from the city of Nisswa. Or if we want to just do it clean, we do $25,000. So 10% would be $22,905.60, or if you want to just round it up for fun math, $25,000.
Mhm.
You want to add that to?
The agenda.
We sure can do that. Is there, seems like there's a consensus that that would be what the council would like to do?
If we're gonna do that, I would rather it be one, not in pennies, make it 25,000.
Just a round amount?
Okay.
Yeah,
Yep.
certainly.
I second that. yeah.
Okay.
Now, before we do that at a meeting, do you want to draft up any documents that you were referring to, like making sure it looks,
You should put that in your motion.
Yes.
Yeah, yep, and then we'll take care of all of that
Yes.
other stuff. Just-
unless okay.
It might take me more than 20 minutes. to-
No, I understand. That's why I'm saying it might not be, for this meeting, maybe the next one.
Well, I think we can make that work. That's,
Okay, so
Right.
that's gonna be item,
we'll add it to the end. We'll skip over the closed session. We'll get to that new item, and then we'll go back to the going into closed session. So
so
we'll,
we'll call it item 5, and then we'll make the closed session
Yes.
item 6.
yes. Okay. Great.
What number did we decide upon?
I believe 25.
25,000.
You guys okay with 25?
Yeah, we can discuss it at the time after the motion too, if everybody wants.
All right. So just put that in your motion.
The one thing that I'm pretty, adamant about, I guess, is the city hall or is the security stuff, for the
Mhm.
buildings.
Oh, yeah.
That we don't have alarms, that we don't have cameras, that we don't have a way to document. And I would like to see us include the fire hall in it.
So do I.
Okay. If there's concerns for some reason, to get them voiced, because I haven't heard any. But, we need to know,
Yeah, do we know why they want that budgeted through their budget and not when we take
that
care of
was
all
the
of them?
That's the
technology.
technology piece, not the security piece.
The technology.
Well, no,
piece.
when I see under here on this B3 security system, the fire hall's not even in there.
Oh, do we know why they didn't want to?
Correct.
I think they were concerned about change in operating procedure and having a new system that might slow down response time. I don't,
Well, I know that, when you put in a fob system, you don't have to activate it until they're up ready to do it. So
Correct.
they can still operate under keys, et cetera.
Correct.
But if we're gonna do, I think we should do all the buildings, city hall's imperative. And the generator stuff, I lop into the security for city hall, because if things go down, this is your emergency operations center.
Yeah, that should be lumped in there.
technically, emergency operations center is the fire hall,
Well,
but
and they don't have
That's
a
not the-
generator either.
they do,
right?
they
They
do,
do,
they
okay.
do, yes.
But it would still, you can fill them up pretty fast. So anyway.
So-
That's where I would like to see us focus.
okay. If the council would like those two items to continue to be priorities, what I can do is we received 2 quotes for our city hall building for the security system. We have a preferred choice of the 2. I can have them come back and actually do a thorough review of the buildings and get us a good number.
Mhm.
Because this was my just, extrapolating of the numbers I had to the other buildings, but I could do that and have them come up and give us a good quote. And then we can work with Jesse as far as the generator and getting better information and kind of working through that too. So hopefully if that's too inflated, then that will save us some dollars.
I am confident we can get something done for. both
Well, and that's
buildings
just an
under
For a lot
estimate
less
based
than that,
on,
yeah.
I mean,
Well,
that's,
con- Maybe we'll do a donation of one of our old generators. That's old but new. Yeah, that seems like it's high.
Yeah, my thoughts on the downtown sound system, I'd like a more in-depth analysis of cost.
that's. not-
Because I think those numbers are way low.
Okay,
And I agree. I don't think it's overly imperative. I think we got people that are hungry.
Mhm.
We have people that are hungry. They're not gonna go downtown for a festival of some sort. And what are we without our own people? So I think we're making a good move.
Is there anything else, anyone? Or we can adjourn?
Oh, we're not.
Oh, no.
well,
We're not
we
done.
have 2 more items.
We have 2 more items.
Right, I'm sorry.
Yep.
I'm just
I'll
looking
I'll
at
get to them
time.
I'll be real quick,
Okay.
but unless there's any other ARPA questions.
No,
Okay.
not on that one.
Great.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you.
Thanks, Maggie. I will be quick. The third item for our workshop is a health insurance update.
Yep.
Item D, it's just an update for now. We'll come back to budget, salaries and budget and health insurance and all that. So in the interest of time, I won't get into that detail, but I did want to touch on the Employee Retention Committee memo that I have for you.
You didn't have much feedback on that, did you?
I didn't get a lot of feedback, and that was, as I was reflecting and putting this memo together, that's a question I have as far as proceeding forward. I hope the policy draft was clear and you got an understanding of at least an idea to get things
Yeah.
started. And I'm definitely supportive of that. But I'm not sure exactly. And hold on, I just want to go to I gave you suggestions.
In a
So
way,
we
it's
can,
like collective bargaining again, but I mean, I think that's what's needed because I don't know what they want for retention. It's to have a committee of employees.
Yeah.
I mean, it's beneficial.
so we can certainly move forward. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Committee made up of employees.
Yep.
Could be very contentious between the council and the committee too. It could go the other way.
It could, yeah, hopefully that's the idea of establishing the goals on the front end is to hopefully help and everyone's on the same page and working towards that. But you don't know until you try. So there's that potential as well that, you know, if we want to have that opportunity to try, but so my questions to the council as far as we can approve the draft policy at an upcoming meeting and keep moving forward with the process. Incorporating this conversation into our budget conversations, because you'll have FaceTime with each department head and maybe getting feedback in that regard. We can make sure we touch on that topic as well. Or we can just wait till we get more feedback from staff and I can follow up and say, we'd like some more feedback. So let me know what you think. I'm certainly open to your thoughts.
Well, I'd like to see the committee up and going fall at latest, but you know, I mean, it is short notice. I mean, we
will
just
take
brought
it,
this up, but I mean, that's mine.
Yep.
You know, at least by the first of the year.
Yeah.
You know,
Realistic, that's kind of, I think in my head, that was kind of realistic as far as getting things set up and implemented so that January 1st, they can, you know, be off and running with their plan, but that doesn't leave a ton of time for
correct.
waiting, so.
So a goal for the first of the year,
Mhm.
I
Seven-
think that's reasonable.
I come down on the negative side a little bit.
Potential issues, yeah.
I know my thing with it is, you know, one of the biggest problems, like, and I've said it, I sound like a broken record. One of the biggest problems Nisswa's had for years is the council never let staff know this is what we're looking for. And now we're doing that. And we seem to be getting pushback. And I don't know if the pushback is because we're not clear enough or it's, you know, and I understand what we think needs to be done might not be in alignment with what certain staff members think needs to be done. However, we were the ones that were elected to do this, and so we're doing that. And we need that communication to be better. And, you know, as a police officer, I can honestly tell you, I didn't always like what the boss said I had to do. But when I was given an opportunity to offer something different, sometimes that was taken, sometimes it wasn't. And when it wasn't taken, I was excited to be a part of the plan, even though I didn't think it would work. And by golly, you know, you did the best job you possibly can to make it work, but that's okay. And sometimes it did work, and sometimes it doesn't work. But so I see your point, Don. I mean, yeah, it can get contentious if people want to have that headbutting, but in the end, I think, I don't know. I think it's a positive thing. I mean, it's, you know, we have that open line of communication. If staff chooses to not participate and take advantage of it, okay. If the council doesn't want to take advantage of it, you know, but, you know, I think at least we hear directly from staff. And then it goes to the personnel committee where they're sitting down with management, so to speak, and before it comes to the whole council. So you can head off some of that. If you have good people on your personnel committee, you can head off a lot of that potential conflict and explain to the employees why in a controlled setting, which is, you know, it's not at a public meeting and stuff. So I'd like to see it. And January 1st, kind of when I was thinking it would be up and running and rolling and going. So hopefully, so, but I may be wrong too. I learned
And
that.
I've been outvoted before too.
So, yeah.
So would you like me to include this on the July agenda then to continue? Yes?
Mhm.
Okay.
I second that.
Okay, I will do that.
Okay.
Very good. And I'm certainly happy to answer any questions on the health insurance. Again, I'll go through it when we do budget, but if you had any immediate questions, I can answer them if you have. Otherwise, we will adjourn and get ready for our regular meeting.
Okay.
Thing on the health insurance. I'm sorry.
We just went over that real quick.
Yeah, we'll just, if you have questions, you might want to come in and sit down.
Yeah, it's easier that way.
It's easier.
Oh,
Believe you me.
I'm on the, yeah, we always have a meeting in June for our businesses are going over what we're gonna do in November for 2023 or the year coming. So, yeah, it's
Okay. Very good. Thank you.
Move adjournment.
a second.
All in favor?
Hey.
Aye.
Aye.